Have you ever stopped to think if the language you speak actually, changes how you see the world? It's a massive, fascinating idea, and in this explainer, we're going to break it all down with some really incredible examples. So let's dive right in. Okay, so our journey starts with a very famous idea, and it's probably a myth you've heard before. The one about the Inuit people having hundreds and hundreds of words for snow. So why do people believe this? I mean, where did this idea even come from? What's the thinking behind it? Well, the logic seems pretty simple, right? For a culture where snow is absolutely everywhere and so important for survival, it makes sense that they would need to describe it in a lot more detail. So they just developed more words for it. Seems logical. But it turns out the whole hundreds of words thing is a bit of a myth. First off, there's no single Inuit language. There are actually many different dialects. And while they do have more specific words for snow than English, the popular story is definitely a big exaggeration. But hey, this myth about snow is really useful because it opens the door to a much bigger, much more interesting question. It's not really about snow at all. It's about the deep connection between the words we use and the way we think. And that brings us to the real question we're exploring today. Could the language you grew up speaking actually shape your experience of reality itself? This whole idea actually has a name. It's called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. And put simply, it's just the theory that your language can influence or shape how you think and what you notice in the world around you. So is there any actual proof for this? Oh, you bet there is. Let's look at some truly fascinating examples from the real world that show this idea in action.
So for our first example, let's head down to an Aboriginal community in Australia, the Guugu Yimithirr. The way they talk about where things are is completely different from how we do it in English.
Check this out. In English, we use words like left, right, in front of, behind. They're all relative to our own bodies. But a Guugu Yimithirr speaker, they don't do that at all. Instead of saying the cup is in front of me, they'd say something like the cup is to the north. They use cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, for everything. And the result of speaking like this every single day? Well, because their language forces them to always know the cardinal directions, they develop this incredible, almost supernatural sense of direction. They always know which way is north, like they have a compass just built right into their brains. Okay, next up, let's talk about something we all think is universal, numbers. So why is it that some languages spoken in the Amazon don't even have words for precise numbers like 1, 2, or 3? Well, the answer really shows how language grows out of what's important to a culture. For these communities, counting things exactly just isn't necessary for their way of life. They just need to know if there's a smaller amount of something or a larger amount, and their language reflects that reality perfectly. And this idea applies to how we literally see the world too. Take colors. In English, we have separate words for blue and green, but some languages just use a single word to describe both. Now, this doesn't mean they can't see the difference, but it does mean their language groups those colors together into one main category. So, we've seen how language can affect our sense of direction and even how we categorize colors. But can it go deeper? I mean, could speaking a different language actually change who you are, your personality? This is something a lot of bilingual and multilingual people say they feel, that their personality shifts, maybe just a little bit when they switch from speaking one language to another. It's like they become a slightly different person. And it turns out, there's actually some research that backs this feeling up. There was a study in 2006 where bilingual Mexican Americans took a personality test. Here's the cool part. When they took the test in English, they got one set of results. But when they took the very same test in Spanish, their personality results were different. It suggests the language they were using really did influence how they presented themselves. Okay, so we've looked at direction, numbers, colors, and even personality. Let's try to put all these pieces together and figure out what it all means. All right, let's ask our big question one last time. After everything we've looked at, what's the final answer? Does the language we speak really change how we see the world? Well, the truth is, it's not a simple yes or no. Most experts today would say that language doesn't lock you into one way of thinking. It doesn't determine your reality, but it absolutely influences you. A good way to think about it is that your language is like a guide. It just makes it easier and more natural to see the world in a particular way. And all of this leaves us with one final huge question to chew on. We've seen that language and culture are totally connected, but which one shapes the other? Does our language shape our culture, or does our culture shape our language? It's a classic chicken and egg problem, and definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.